a governance and inclusion expert. He co-founded Youth for Peace Sierra Leone, a grassroots organization promoting peace building through youth dialogue, conflict resolution workshops, and community engagement projects. He developed inclusive governance curriculum, a curriculum for educators and community leaders focusing on fostering inclusive governance practices and promoting intercultural understanding. He led peace-building initiatives in post-conflict Sierra Leone and facilitated community dialogues, conflict resolution training, and youth empowerment programs, contributing to a more peaceful and just society. So, ladies and gentlemen, make it rain in the chat box. You can just, drop the clap emoji as I welcome Mr. Tejan Kamara, a Sierra Leonean. If someone is from Sierra Leone, and he's going to be talking to us today. The second person is Miss Kanda Honourine from Cameroon. I hope I pronounced that properly. She is the community coordinator and social media manager at Defy Hate Watch and Defy Hate Now and Civic Watch organization. She coordinates the training of Civic Watch peace waivers, and which involves training community youth leaders in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. Their mission is to mitigate hate speech, both online and offline, and to promote social cohesion within their communities. So let's welcome Ms. Kanda Honourine in the chat box, please. The next panelist here, I refer to him as the Dean of the Dean. He's Dr. Kinang Derick Fai. He's from Cameroon. He's an expert in conflict resolution and crime. He's an expert in conflict resolution and crime. Okay, he is a political scientist, a jurist, conflict resolution specialist, and crime expert, specializing in human rights and economic intelligence with the Cameroon National Council of Crime Experts. He has been the project associate for Defy Hate Now, in charge of research and administration since 2020 till date. Okay, Dr. Kinang is also passionate about humanitarian aid, human rights protection advocacy, human trafficking, irregular migration, and quality education for all. He doubles as a PhD holder in international relations and conflict resolution in the University of Buea, and a PhD fellow in political science from the University of Yaounde too. So let's make welcome Dr. Kinang Fai in the chat box. Our fourth speaker, but not the least, is Mr. Dawda Ceesay. I hope I pronounced that right as well. Mr. Dawda is from Gambia. He's currently a student of governance and regional integration at PAUGHSS. He's an expert. His areas of expertise is in education, teaching, governance, and sustainable development. Okay, Dawda is a specialist in education with a vast teaching experience across different levels in the Gambia. As a student leader and advocate, Mr. Dawda has influenced many young people's lives through career coaching, career guidance, and peace talk engagements at community level. Recently, Mr. Dawda focused on trending issues in politics and peace building through education, particularly in ECOWAS, thus writing on the recent Niger coup. He has great interest in promoting peace, reparations in conflicted communities, and peace education among young school children. Quite interesting profiles. So you will agree with me that we have people who are fully packed for today's session. Okay, so this is how it's going to go. It's going to be quite interactive, and we would be having some discussions on certain key questions. And as an audience, as someone following this webinar or panel session, if you have any question, please note them down, because at the end of this, we will open the floor to general question and answers. Now, I'm going to begin with Mr. Tejan Kamara. I hope we are all on board. Mr. Tejan Kamara,
Yes.
can you tell us, you are the youth civic worker, educator, governance, and inclusion expert. What does a culture of peace mean in our global society today? And how would persons who suffer exclusion in our African society define peace?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Madam Abigail. In response to your question, a culture of peace in today's globalized world means fostering understanding, respect, and cooperation across borders and cultures. Basically, it means actively working, to dismantle systems of oppression and inequality, creating a world where everyone has a chance to thrive. For those experiencing exclusion, as you mentioned in your question, basically for those experiencing exclusion in Africa, peace will likely mean a world where they have access to basic necessities, equal opportunities, and also to them, peace will mean a voice that they will have in decision that affect their lives. It will also mean recognition and respect for their identities, who they are, what they are, and as well as their contributions to society. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you for that apt response. One key thing I took from what you said is that peace to excluded people is a world where they can have access to basic necessities. I think that is very key. That is very key. Thank you so much for that. Briefly, let me move to Miss Kanda Honourine from Cameroon. Can you tell us um, can you tell us, what does a culture of peace mean? And how would you describe this culture of peace in the social media space? And how do you think it should be practiced on social media? You're a social media manager, and I think you'd be able to tell us.
Um, Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I will say a culture of peace. Let me just use the definition according to the UN. It says it's a value of attitudes of life or um, ways of life that reject violence to prevent conflict and tackling the root causes of violence by solving the solution by solving violence in communities through dialogue. It could be through arbitration or negotiations. It could be through individuals or group of persons. And through social media, we have a lot of ways, because social media is a tool that can be used to mitigate speech if we use it positively. The word positively, because many people will use social media in different forms. So using social media in a positive way is going to foster peace in our communities. We can use it in communication that promotes peace, that call for an action of peace via social media. We can also use social media to shape minds of individuals. It could be formal as informal, as well as informal. Communication could be aimed at calling on people to come on a discussion platform. For example, like what we are doing right now, we are discussing that promoting peace in our community. We call for an action of peace via social media. We could also use social media as a form of campaign. We call for campaign with the use of hashtag. The use of hashtag can be used on social media to get to a wider audience, a wider audience that maybe if we don't use the hashtag, it will just end within our entourage. An example is the hashtag defyhatenow. I'll take an example of peace uh, Peace Day 2024 that is being used on the social media platform. That is another way of calling people to join in an action of peace worldwide. Thank you.
Please let me just
I hope
hold
I
you there.
answered all.
Yes, you
Yes,
did.
please.
But you said something that really caught my attention. You said using hashtags, to draw people, encourage people to lend their voices online. But I would like to know, how effective is a mere hashtag on social media, and how can it bring about this peaceful culture that we're talking about?
Okay, a hashtag is a form of it's a word that is being attached when you during campaign. When you use a hashtag, it goes viral more than just simply words, because it is being highlighted on the social media platform. In case somebody falls on that particular hashtag, sorry, it is going to, since it is highlighted, it is different from other words that you find on social media platforms. You want to know more about it. Trying to click that particular hashtag, you're going to have a lot of information concerning that hashtag. Maybe it's a campaign that is on peace, or it's a campaign on education, it's a campaign on back to school, stuff like that. So hashtag is very important in promoting peace, and the kind of hashtag you want to use to will determine what you want to spread on the social media platform.
Thank you so much for that. I think that is quite clear, and it's important if we're able to, take our campaign to a wider range of audience. And according to what you said, a hashtag is something that can do that. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask this question to Dr. Kinang. You are a conflict research specialist and a crime expert. So, considering the rise in crime rates and interethnic differences we see in our African society today, what does a culture of peace mean to you? Dr. Kinang.
Okay, thank you so much. Greetings once more, Madam Agbigai. Greetings to us all. And permit me start by saying a happy International Day of Peace to us all. Please, to me, when I look at the concept of the culture of peace, I want to see it as a belief. I want to see it as a philosophy. I want to see it as a way of life. I want to see it as those set of values, beliefs, attitudes, behavior that prompts and preaches in favor of non-violent means to solving conflict. So that is the way I see the culture of peace. Once an individual inculcates in him, not just by behavior, not just by your tradition, not just by your values, but by your everyday life, you are that particular individual, you are that particular person that promotes non-violent ways, promotes a dialogue, promotes the respect of human rights and inclusiveness towards conflict resolution. One can start saying you are adopting a culture of peace. So in my own small mindset, that is how I look at the concept. Though since its inception or creation in 1981 to present day, it has evolved, but it centers around all of this. And grosso modo, we can just say when you prefer dialogue and non-violence approach to solving problems, you are developing a culture of peace. Thank you.
Thank you for drawing my attention to dialogue. But with the high rate of conflict and crimes ravaging our society today, what is your opinion? What, in your opinion, is the most effective a way for brokering peace for all? Would you prefer dialogue or stifling resistance? For example, we know that there are people who perpetrate evil. They live among us, and we're trying to promote an environment of peace, stability, etc. So, how well do you think we can tackle this? Do we employ a strong, stringent measures to curb this crime rate, or do you think we should sit down and dialogue with them, etc.? What do you think?
Permit me use both backgrounds of mine to approach this. You see, normally expert in the domain, I'm not celebrating him more than I can do. The likes of So Christopher, they will tell you we have two ways through which we handle conflict. Either you use the harsh way or you use peaceful approaches. So since we're talking about peace, let's keep aside the harsh way, which is war, and focus on the peaceful approaches towards handling all of this. And from my background, they will tell you you have legal approaches to all of these, as well as non-legal, or what is commonly referred to as alternative dispute resolution. So if you ask me to choose, do we go by dialogue or we go by the strict respect of the law? I will be tempted to tell you we need a bit of all. We need a bit of all. Though I am someone who preaches more in favor of the use of alternative dispute resolution, which ties with dialogue. Because when you go in favor of dialogue, one peculiarity about dialogue is that most often it draws you towards providing a lasting solution to the problem you are faced with. It draws you towards having that solution in which nobody is a loser and no other person is the winner. Both parties go their separate way and they still build that spirit of love, tolerance, respect, and acceptance among themselves. But in as much as we want to preach more in favor of dialogue, it could be mediation, it could be negotiation, it could take any other form of alternative dispute resolution. We will not want to do, in fact, to do away with legal practices, with the respect of the rule of law. Because whether we like it or not, modern world is built under states, and there are rules and regulations that must be respected. Once the law is there and applied well, we can have a well-respected society. So to broke this piece, in my opinion, I'm in simply sense trying to say that we need to develop a dialogue as the best approach, as the first approach. We need to have that ability to tolerate, to accept, to love, and to understand and recognize people in their inclusiveness to solve problems. But that does not stop us from also from time to time applying the law when it comes to ensuring justice, because justice brings peace.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Justice brings peace. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to move on to Mr. Dawda from the Gambia. You are an expert in governance and sustainable development. But I would like to ask, based on what Dr. Kinang said, concerning, their bodies and their standards that need to be respected. What do you think? What do you think is the role of continental and regional bodies like the African Union, ECOWAS? What is their role in promoting peace at the local and the global levels? And do you think they're effective, Mr. Dawda?
Thank you so very much, moderator. This question is really very apt, and I must say this is one of the most trending things that we should think about as Africans. First, I would say a big happy International Day of Peace to everyone here and to everyone out of this platform. Basically, if you look at the functions of the African Union and of course the functions of ECOWAS, there has been a series of interventions that have been made by both organizations, the African Union particularly, and of course ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. The initiatives and programs that have been put forward by the African Union particularly are initiatives that have been seen visibly, and of course they have been so useful in so many areas, so many aspects in Africa. First, I will talk about the African Union in its capacity to intervene during conflicts, and of course this has been very evident. The African Union has really intervened in areas where conflict have been taking place, or where conflict is still taking place in Africa. An example is, of course, the African Union intervention in Somalia, the African Union intervention in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and so many other places where war has taken place in Africa. But the African Union has not just stopped there. The African Union has put up mechanisms, strategies to make sure not only to intervene when there is a war or conflict, but also to prevent the occurrence of wars or conflicts within the African continent. And in doing so, the African Union, of course, they come up with something, or the initiative of the early warning system. The early warning system is there to alert the union, the body, that there is a war or a conflict is imminent somewhere, and as a result, they would now intervene in order to stop that war from happening. This is one of the strategies, the most effective strategies to preventing conflict, because you cannot just be reacting when there is conflict. Of course, what is more important is for you to be proactive. You be 1 step or 2 steps ahead of the conflict. But in most cases, the reason we are failing, or in fact not failing, but reacting when actually the objective of the conflict has been achieved, is because we are reacting. We will wait until when the conflict is already on, or it has killed so many people, that is the time when we intervene. But now having an early warning system where actually when there is when the emergence of a war is likely, and then that alert would be sent to the body responsible, and initiatives would be taken, measures would be put in place in order to avert that conflict, is indeed something that is very important. And another thing that the African Union has put in place, which is of course contributing to peace restoration and of course continuity of peace in Africa, is democracy consolidation. The African Union has ensured that the countries within the continent abide by the rules of democracy and of course good governance. This is something that ensures peace, because if in the absence of good governance and the consolidation of democracy, of course these are things that would these are the root causes of most of the conflicts we have in the continent. So in order to avoid that, the African Union promotes democracy, good governance, and of course its full implementation in or across the continent of Africa. And furthermore, we also have the election observation missions. Of course, the AU is very particular about peaceful elections being taken into consideration in the continent. So there are so many at the level of ECOWAS. Of course, the intervention part of it we have seen recently, as I indicated in one of my articles, the intervention that ECOWAS wanted to do in Niger. So these are all peace mechanisms that these bodies are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your intervention. And I do hope they are quite effective towards promoting the peace that we want to see materialize in our communities. Let me quickly go back to Mr. Tejan Kamara. Mr. Tejan Kamara, you said something about being a governance and inclusion expert. So I would like to ask you, what do you think the government and policymakers are doing towards promoting peace in our various countries, or the ones that you are aware of? And what kind of policies would you like to see towards supporting peaceful coexistence, addressing issues such as inclusion, social justice, human rights, conflict prevention, etc.? We would like practical policies. So what kind of policies have you been advocating for?
Thank you very much. Basically, government has a crucial role in creating an environment conducive to peace. Basically, we are seeing that in most African countries, there are inter- and intra-state conflicts, of which government has significant roles to play in creating an environment to conducive peace. And this includes investing in education and social programs. Firstly, when governments invest in addressing poverty and inequality through education, and also governments invest in addressing issues of healthcare and societal safety nets, this is one way that governments can contribute in creating a conducive and peaceful environment. Because when people are educated, when issues of poverty are being addressed, and as well as some societal safety nets are being put in place. Also, government has another role to play towards creating a peaceful environment in promoting inclusive governance. Government has a role to ensuring that diverse representation and participation in decision-making processes. There are some marginalized groups in communities or in societies that when they are marginalized into the governance process, these people, they become frustrated with the system, and it has tendencies of raising war, conflict. Today, in so many African countries, we see how what are some of the causes of conflict, because many people have been excluded from the governance system. So I would say promoting inclusive governance is another responsibility that government has to promote peace in wherever they find themselves. And furthermore, upholding human rights. It's very significant. It's very, very key guaranteeing the fundamental human rights for all citizens, regardless of background, regardless if you're in the minority group, you're in the minority language, in whatever background they find themselves, so long as these are citizens in your country, upholding human rights is another role or responsibility that governments have in promoting peace. Also, investing in conflict prevention and resolution. Government has a responsibility to invest in conflict prevention and resolution. How? By providing resources for conflict mediation, providing resources for mediation, like
Let me
Yes.
because of our time, my apologies. Let me quickly cut you there because I have a secondary question to this point you're trying to raise. You're talking about so many things that the government can do, inclusion, etc.
Yes.
But I would like to, it's like an should I say an open secret that the government, most people in power today are the seniors, the people who have, sat tight, that held on to, the leadership positions, the decision-making tables. They
Exactly.
are the seniors. So let me ask you, what, what do you think the youth can do at this point in time? Because I'm sure most of the youth feel excluded when it comes to decision making. They're not in power in most of our countries in Africa. So what do you think the youth are doing, and what can they do towards, being a part of the decision making body, the leadership body that brings about peace in our community?
Prior to this time, and in most African countries prior to this time, although it's still visible, we see that the majority that are in power or into leadership positions are the seniors, the elderly people. But quite recently, we've seen so many young people that are taking up leadership initiatives. Because to start off, as a young person that wants to go into leadership roles, you must ensure that you empower yourself with the right skills needed for whatever leadership role you want to take. And having empowered yourself, because we have so many young people that have been empowered now, having empowered yourself, you ensure that you start by creating an environment of volunteering within your society. Because now, as we see the leadership roles, I'm citing examples from where I'm coming from. I've seen so many young people that are our seniors. We are all young people, yes, but these are our seniors that we look up to within the youth civic space. They've been creating, after they have empowered themselves, they've been serving their communities continuously. And as a result of the services they've been rendering to their communities, governments had identified some of them and they've appointed them to serve in various leadership roles. For example, we have one of the youngest member of parliament in Africa, who is a member of one of my organizations in the name of Siatomi. She is 26 years old, just with an undergraduate degree. She does not even have a master's or a PhD. But she is a member of parliament as a result of her contributions to our community. So if we talk about there are seniors that are in power and young people are being marginalized and excluded, it's fact. But in changing the narratives, having empowered ourselves, we need to start in serving our communities through volunteerism, through initiatives that can give back to our community. By so, if we are not appointed to serve in general capacity by the government, our community can push us to serve as representatives to go in for leadership roles.
Okay, fantastic. If not because we have, little time allocated for this, there's a lot that we could, there's a lot we could delve into based on what you have said. And you said something that was key, volunteerism. We need to start contributing in our own little way. We cannot just wait to jump to the top. We can start in our little way by volunteering in our communities, and then we go up from there. Thank you so much for that. Let me call Dr. Kinang. We're still talking about politics and governance. Dr. Kinang, so now it's an open secret that the political class exploits the media space to carry out ethnic divide and conquer tactics during elections. I'm going to use the example of Nigeria. That's what I master. There are situations where one party would try to, push the ethnic agenda when trying to, draw voters or the electorate. So sometimes we know that this can plunge the society into, propagating hate for one another, etc. So what do you have to say about this? And how, in your opinion, can it be remedied, Dr. Kinang?
Thank you so much again, Abigail, for that beautiful one. Permit me convoke two theories to draw our attention to this. I would like to talk about instrumentalism and constructivism. You see, we need to get to that stage in which Africans understand the simple fact that there come a time, especially in the world of politics, in which someone somewhere, let's not limit it to our politicians to make it look as if politics is the worst practice on planet Earth. There come a time in which someone somewhere is going to instrumentalize you for a particular goal or to get certain objectives met with. And by so doing, we need to act like constructivists to know that the society, like Nicolas Onuf and Alexandra Wentz put it, is as a result of our proper construction. We can either make or mar, like Bernard Fallon puts it. We need to know that these persons, they do these things at times not for their interest. Some act for our interest. And should that be the case, there are certain things we must do as individuals and as a community to slash back these politicians. My co-panelists, my predecessor already said a lot of things. I just want to add 1 or 2 points to all of that. I want to talk about the importance of education. Africans in their entirety needs to give education an important place, and most especially peace education. We need to get to master the political landscape and all what politics is all about. We need to get to master governance so that when these persons come with their hidden agenda, it becomes no secret to us. It becomes very difficult for them to manipulate us or our respective communities. Somebody was spoken about giving back to the community. You must not necessarily have the entire world of humanity to give back to your community. Just educating people on their political rights, on human rights, on the necessity to practice inclusiveness, on the need to do no harm, the golden rule, leads them to begin to understand some of these things. I also want to talk about the aspect of good governance. And to this, I always like to quote the strong Tanzanian man, Magufuli, where I talk of the magufulation of African society. Whether we like it or not, we need to magufulate Africans from bottom to top. Good governance is not about those that are in the position of hierarchy. Good governance is about the farmer who does farming in a special way. Good governance is about the journalist, Abigail, the moderator that you are, who chooses not to be a bystander in front of evil and injustice, who takes the front row to tell the politician, look, you will pass through me before you get to my community. When we magufulate Africans in our governance from the smallest part of the society, which is the family, to the greatest level, which is the international community, I strongly believe we are going to have a solution to some of these problems brought to humanity by these persons. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that powerfully packed intervention. And one thing I caught is we need to magufulate Africa. Thank you so much for that. Briefly, let me call Miss Kanda Honourine. Miss Kanda Honourine. Let's come back to social media, please. Talking about social media, can you give us, a mental picture of what it is like on social media? Because people throw careless, hateful opinions on the platforms like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and they casually think it's a harmless opinion. When they say something like, "Oh, this tribe is like this, that tribe is like that," when they propagate hate speech like that, how far can it go in propagating the communal and ethnic hate, violence, and extremism in our society? And then, in your opinion, do you think social media needs to be regulated in our various countries?
Thank you very much. The social media space in Africa in general has become very, I would say it is coming wild. People are using social media in Africa a lot, especially Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. And it is a platform where information is being shared. You could meet the good, the bad, the ugly. So most people use the social media space to propagate hateful, incite violence, violent extremism, while sitting behind their digital phones or gadgets, saying that this will not, I cannot be caught when I spread this. I am comfortable. Some people do it for fun, not actually knowing that what they are sharing can be harmful to those using the space. Youth, especially these days, they don't understand the impact of what they're sharing. They don't know the danger of what they share on social media. It is a space where you will notice, let me take an example of Facebook, that there are many groups. You go on Facebook, there are groups, and some groups are having thousands of people who read a message that is being shared. And most of the times, what is being reshared is mostly what is hateful, what is denigrating, something that has to do with maybe the person's identity, maybe insulting the person. And let me just take an example. If today I have to share something that has to do with peace building on the social media platform, and another person shares something that is, let's say, a nude of somebody else, or maybe let me take an example of a politician saying something that has to bring down the person. Most people have the tendency to share more of what is hateful and what is actually being that what is actually good for the society, that would bring the society up, educative. So the social media platform has become that space where people to share more of hateful content rather than sharing content that are good for their society, for their own health. Now, what is good now for us is that at Defy Hate Now, we work encountering such in social media spaces. We can now identify maybe a group or the social media space. Maybe if there are youths that are good in propagating the hate or incitement to violence, you target that particular group and try to see how you can change the narrative with peaceful words. Like I spoke in the beginning, we can use words like we can use hashtag to do that. You can use peaceful words to rapidly reach those people in their communities, to educate them on the dangers of hate speech, on the dangers of what they are doing. Because on the social media space, we could find bullying. There are people who are being bullied on the social media space. There are people who are being scammed. To identify such things, because misinformation too is one of the things that are being shared on the social media platform. And while you are navigating the social media platform, you need to identify these and know how to counter it. Maybe if you come across something that is misinformation or hate speech, you will need to know how to do that. And we have a hashtag at Defy Hate Now which says think before you click.
Yes, I would like to stop you there. Thank you. I think you've said a whole lot because of our time. And I love your intervention strategy where you reach out to people who propagate hate speech and you try to change the narrative. Kudos on that. I think that's a great one. The last intervention we would have today would be from Mr. Dawda Ceesay. Mr. Dawda, you said you've been teaching for a while, and of course, you are passionate about education. So, tell us what how education plays a crucial role in shaping attitudes and behaviors. How can education contribute to building a culture of peace? And can you discuss educative initiatives that promote peace and conflict resolution skills and the importance of including peace education in the school curricula? In just about 1 minute, can you talk about that?
Thank you so very much. I must say education is the bedrock for every successful society. So in the absence of education, all that we are talking about would be unachieved. In order to inculcate the values of peace and culture of peace in the minds, or in our African society, or in the entire world, of course, education plays a very fundamental role. We need to inculcate these values of peace, appreciating one another, diversity, and inclusion in the minds of people when they are still young. And now they will learn to appreciate each other. And there is something that is very fundamental in education, teaching our students or our children to learn how to live and learn globally, recognizing the importance of every other individual as their own importance in the societal formation. This is quite important. And of course, there is something that is very important as an initiative, global competence, training students or our children to become or to acquire global competence. In this way, the Nigerian who is trained in Nigeria will not only be suitable for the Nigerian society, but will be suitable for each and every society that he or she finds himself or herself into. And this would, of course, promote peace. So education plays a very fundamental role. And of course, when we look at the aspect of higher education, collaborating among our institutions within the continent of Africa and of course beyond, this is also very fundamental. So the role of education in shaping the lives of people, the young children that we have, is quite eminent, and it cannot be left behind in as much as we are aspiring for peace. And I must say that peace, of course, as it has been defined by many people, of course, this is just one element of peace, that is the absence of war. But the aspect of providing inclusive education and access to education for every child is one of the most fundamental pillars to inculcate peace in our societies. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your wise words. Thank you. Okay, so quickly, I am going to open the floor to every other person. If you have a question, please signify by raising your hands. Signify by raising your hands, and you will be called to take the floor. I will also be checking the chat to see if we have questions there. Do we have questions?
Yes, there is a question there.
Okay, from Kaltun Osman. I hope I pronounced your name. My apologies. Okay, so Kaltun Osman is asking, how can we encourage young involvement in conflict resolution and mediation, particularly with regards to the Sudanese crisis and other events? Thank you for that very pertinent question. I think anyone can answer this from the panelists, from among the panelists. Maybe I should. Dr. Kinang?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Maybe I step in to say a word around that. I think it still boils down to some of the things we already spoke about. But what I want to add, especially to what other co-panelists already made mention of, we want to start by the famous statement, the hungry man is an angry man. So if we want to have youth, a hungry youth will be an angry youth as well, engage in conflict resolution and all of this. We need to ensure the socioeconomic empowerment of the youth. You know, the UN resolution on youth peace building makes it crystal clear. We need to get to that level in which youths are empowered. And most often do not count on the society to empower you. Take personal initiatives to empower yourself. And by so doing, you will be a solution bringer and not a solution seeker. I think that is very important. And I would really, really want to stress back on the issue of education. It's very, very important. It's very, very important for the youth to get educated. It is only when you know the path you want to follow that you can be able to bring reasonable impact in the society. So if youths should get involved in peace building, in conflict resolution, they can only do this when they are educated. We have other issues like respect of human rights and the rest.
Thank you so much. I love the fact that you emphasized on education. The youth need to be educated, and that is how they can be empowered, to bringing peace in their society. But I would really love to hear from the youth, person among the panelists today. Mr. Tejan, can you just briefly touch on this question in few words?
The question that have already been answered via doctor. Come again, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, he has said it all, but in addition to that, let me go back to the question and see. She talks about how we encourage involvement of youth in conflict resolution and mediation. And of course, these are things that we've highlighted that young people can involve in conflict mediation and resolution when they are educated with the skills of mediation and negotiation. So we encourage young people to go into professions around studying or reading about peace, because you cannot give what you don't have. Mediation and negotiation take beyond mere just what you know or the discipline that you are doing. It takes someone with the right skills, with the right knowledge, with the right ethics and experiences to involve into issues of mediation and negotiation. So I believe it's high time that young people have to take some trainings around issues of mediation, around issues of negotiation, around issues of peace building. When young people go into trainings, there are a lot of platforms now that are creating some of these platforms. You have some short-term courses they are doing. You have some fellowships that are promoting some of these things. I believe when young people get into those things, you equip yourself with the skills needed, then you can involve
Yes.
yourself now in mediation and negotiation.
All right. Thank you so much for that intervention. Okay, so the next question we have briefly is, let me read it out. Thank you for your insightful presentation. Happy International Peace Day. Dr. Derick, you've emphasized the importance of good governance in achieving peace and development. Considering the historical and ongoing challenges in Africa, what are the key obstacles to achieving good governance on the continent? Do you believe good governance is realistic? Is a realistic goal for Africa, especially if we consider the bottom-up approach? If so, what strategies or reforms would be necessary to make it a reality? I don't know if you grasp the question.
Wow, wow, Abigail, those are million questions in one statement. But
Yes.
all right, let me try. I think she's asking about obstacles to peace in Africa. There are so many reasons why we no longer have peace in most part of Africa, and one of them we might want to bring up is the aspect of Africa abandoning her identity. And so Christopher, in one of his work trying to talk about the origin of conflict, talks about, let me just take just an aspect, imported constitutions. You come across a continent in which a large portion of them imported constitutions from other parts of the world, and they are trying to force it on Africans. We want to practice liberal democracy. Meanwhile, by our nature, we need to practice pluralistic democracy. We want to be homogeneous. Meanwhile, by our nature, we need to be heterogeneous so that we can be united in our diversity. So this systemic problem on its own is a strong determinant of insecurity we have in Africa. We also want to talk about bad governance. I'll still come back to it. We really need to magufulate Africa. Africa is the irony of itself, with a lot of resources, but unfortunately having citizens at the top that do not love their country, as well as citizens at the bottom. When we get to that level in which people think society inclusively and for general good than personal good, we will shun out poverty, we will shun out corruption, we will send unnecessary international influence packing. And that way, I think we are going to get a better Africa. It's not
Yes.
something for those at the top. It's something for each and every African doing something
Thank
at
you.
a small level to make the continent better.
That cannot be overemphasized. We have to put in our little the way we can. We have some hands up. Let me give the floor to the hands that are up, and then we'll come back to the questions in the chat box. So I have, I think it's Dr. Christopher, and so please, you have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon to you all. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And thank you for inviting me and making me part of this forum. Actually, I'm sorry to come in now. I should have been there earlier, but you know, I was occupied somewhere. But I'm here. First of all, I'm going to make a comment when it concerns peace. Peace is one of humanity's main value. And we talk of peace being humanity's main value. Without peace, the society cannot function. I just heard of somebody talking about the lack of war means the society is peaceful. That is what many people think, that when we don't have conflict, then the society is peaceful. But I would like to say we have cultural peace, we have structural peace, and we have, you know, psychological peace, we have political peace, we have all of these issues must be present. If they are lacking, then the society is not peaceful. What do we say cultural peace? What do we mean by cultural peace? When we talk of cultural peace, it means a society where all the cultures in that society are respected, are accepted, are recognized. When we talk of structural peace, we mean a society where there's justice, there is equality, there is the basic necessity that people need so that people will not go hungry, to be angry, and, you know, in order to create grievances and then create war. So, and when we talk of political peace, we mean a society where the infrastructure, the political infrastructure are there, and not that the people are there. We mean a society where you have strong structures, and not strong men or strong women. A society where people are, the institutions are stronger than the people, and there nobody is above the law. When we talk of psychological peace, we are talking about peace where the Germans put it in this way: die Weltanschauung. How do you see the world in which you live in? Is there justice in the world in which you are? Is there you know, the basic necessity you are psychologically? Are you satisfied where you are living? And all these issues put together in one package would build up peace. Without this, then there is no peace. So looking at this particular perspective or this approach, all of us are supposed to contribute in order to promote peace. And what is happening today in Africa, if you look at it closely, most countries in Africa, they start talking about peace education at the level of university. We have to change our curriculum, and changing our curriculum, we have to bring in peace at a very early age so that we are able to get the theoretical and the practical approach of peace. And when we train our students, we train our children, we train it starts from home even. When we train everybody, we take them to practical examples. Taking them into practical examples, you see, gradually all of us will grow with the culture of peace. It is a culture, and this culture is supposed to be instituted into us. You know, so these are some of the aspects that we are supposed to, you know, to inculcate in our society in order to have a peaceful society. Thank you for now. It may be I'll come in later.
Thank you so much for your intervention. I must say that this is an entire keynote speech that has just been delivered. Thank you so much for that. And one thing I caught is that we need strong structures and not strong men and women. We need stronger structures. Thank you so much for that. Okay, I'm going back to the chat box and I have a question from Mr. Bernard. He's asking, good morning, and panelists, thank you for your great presentation on peace building in Africa. Please, could you help me get an answer to my questions? What metrics can be used to evaluate the success and effectiveness of peace building programs in various African contexts? What role do regional organizations such as African Union play in facilitating peace building efforts across the continent? I think the second part of the question had already been answered during the panel session, so we would focus on the first. What metrics can be used to evaluate the success and effectiveness of peace building programs? Any of the panelists can answer that question. Maybe we should have Mr. Dawda.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so very much. Although I would shift part of the responsibility to my colleagues, my real specialization in education. So I will talk about the metrics that we can, some of the metrics that we can use to measure the success or having, achievement of peace in our societies. I would define it in an educational perspective. For me, the metric that we can use to define a peaceful society in Africa and around the globe would be a society where every child has the access to education. Every child has the access to be to get the values of peace, norms, and of course cultures of peace inculcated in their minds when they are young. So when we achieve a society where children get access to education and of course peaceful education, then this is a metric, or this is a yardstick that I believe can be used to measure that yes, there is achievement of peace. But nonetheless, some of the other panelists can also intervene. But my,
Okay.
yeah.
I can see Dr.
Okay.
Kinang. I think he wants to talk.
Hello, Abigail. Maybe I add something. I think peace building efforts most often they come in to solve a situation of violence. I think the very first metrics you might want to use, the very first approach is observation. Do we now have a non-violence community? Most of the peace building programs that have been launched, the only way we can know whether they've been effective or not is by trying to see if the problem for which those peace building efforts were put in place have been resolved. You get it? If they've not been resolved, then we'll say the peace building efforts have not been successful. But if you want to push the discussion further, in every peace building effort, one can talk about post-conflict, or you talk about peace building successfully implemented when we have a society where we've left from injustice to justice, when we have a society in which there is no violence, when we have a society in which there is a respect of human rights. Professor So spoke about positive peace in all what he was trying to enumerate. I'm trying to quote here Johan Gartou, the father of positive peace, who talked about negative and positive peace in his work entitled Peace by Peaceful Means. The Norwegian sociologist tells you we can only say peace building has succeeded when we don't have cultural violence, when we don't have structural violence, when there is a respect of human rights, when there is inclusiveness in globalization, and when there is justice above all. When the common man can live peacefully in his society, and he is culturally, psychologically, environmentally, and in all domains of life feel achieved and successful, there we can be talking about the success of peace building efforts. Failure to have these elements, I don't think we'll be talking about successful peace building efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just going to briefly read a comment from the chat box. It's a contribution, and it says, my contribution is that peace is highly fragile, and I believe that that's the reason it is hard to accommodate and sustain it. However, I believe that peace is hidden in the yard of love, where there is love, there is peace, happiness, and harmony. I don't mean hypocritical love, but love that comes genuinely from the heart, and it must be a kind of love that is beyond self-love. Love is the bedrock of peace and harmony. Peace workers must learn to love equally. And I quote Martin Luther Jr., darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. When hate is present, I think he's trying to say love is absent. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to give now the floor to Katim and Fauzi, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Fauzi is speaking. I would like to ask Dawda, because he raised a very important point about the African Union in promoting peace in all African countries. But in the same time, the African Union have failed, big fail in the term of mediation and in the term of resolving the crisis happening in Sudan right now. So I would like for him to elaborate or enlighten me in this point, because from my own perspective, I'm seeing it's clear, obvious, the African Union failed thoroughly in resolving the conflict in Sudan. And thank you.
Okay, can I come in? Moderator, are you here with us?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Fauzi, for that question. Of course, citing that the African Union and other regional bodies are very instrumental in peacekeeping and, of course, promoting peace, I highlighted some values that the African Union and other regional bodies are, of course, are really interested in and are promoting to ensure peace and peaceful society in Africa. And one of the values I highlighted was the early warning system. Of course, democracy also was one of the things. Democracy, the consolidation of democracy among African countries, as well as promoting good governance and peaceful elections across Africa. Now, when you look at some of the conflicts we have in Africa, they are very complex. They are very complex. And of course, the peace or conflict experts in the group would be able to tell us more about the complexity of some conflicts we have in Africa. But that does not denounce the fact that the African Union and other regional bodies have been very instrumental in the peacekeeping in Africa. They have successfully initiated initiatives that were very instrumental in peace building in Comoros, peace building in Burundi, peace building in Sudan. Of course, the AMID forces and the AMIBID forces were all established by the African Union in collaboration with the United Nations in order to, if not to put an end to the conflicts that were happening, that are happening in these areas, but also to mitigate the calamities and the consequences of the conflicts as expected on the people living in those societies. Because when you look at the gravity of some conflicts, of course, people are dying, others are hungry. So it will be very difficult to put a conflict to an end with just a full stop. It has to be a process. And the African Union, to my belief, and to the engagement that I have been, and of course, the initiatives that following the initiatives and the unfolding of some of the programs and activities of the African Union, I wouldn't score the African Union 100% being successful. They have their challenges because some of the challenges are, as I said, the complexity of some conflicts in the continent is also a problem to conflict solving in Africa. Okay. Some of the conflicts are not just mere conflicts, but they are deeply rooted. And some of the conflict experts here, like Professor Nso and other experts, will tell you about the complexity of some conflicts we have in Africa. But this is to say that the African Union has the early warning system, which is a mechanism to promote peace. They have the consolidation of democracy and good governance among African governments, which is, of course, another strategy to promote peace within African countries. And of course, the observation of elections to ensure that elections are free and fair, because these are some of the root causes to conflicts that we have in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are behind time, but I feel this question is very pertinent. This very last question in the chat box. In just one sentence or two sentences, can we just answer Mr. Moise Tugma? He says, Sahel countries have been facing terrorism for 10 years, and that has caused the return of military to power. What solutions do the panelists propose? Secondly, we talk about inclusive education. I think Mr. Tejan will answer that. We talk about inclusive education while ethnicity divides most of the time. While the ethnic divides most of the time come from family education. At school, people can teach you to embrace cultural diversity, while at home, they educate you on the ethnic division and differences. So how do we manage this reality? Mr. Tejan, please answer number 2 briefly, and number 1 would go to Mr. Dr. Kinang, and we will end this session.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that I stand to be guided. I believe that giving our children the right education is a source to peace from the home. Now, the question says that when the children are at school, they give them that ethical, from ethnicity, we are one people and all, which is a very strong way in starting grassroots mobilization or grassroots education to inclusiveness. I believe the parents have a role to play from the various homes in a sense that to give the children the right education. Because from the question being asked, he made mention that when the children are at their houses or their homes, the parents tell the children that they are from different, that which means it's a source that starts igniting crisis from the home. So I believe the parent has a responsibility to ensure that they give their children the right education that can promote inclusiveness, that can promote ethnicity, that is one that can promote guidance. When the children are being educated with the right knowledge, I believe that is what they will take outside of their homes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kinang. Dr.
Okay.
Kinang.
Thank you again, Abigail. I just want to throw some very short recommendations as to the question that was asked. I mean, if the Sahel countries are going through all what they are going through, research has already proven that Africa has key problems Africa is faced with, and the Sahel zone is not excluded from this. Just solve the problem of structural inequalities that we are faced with, the Sahel countries are faced with, and you are going to solve some of the issues around structural violence. Just ensure that we have cultural values that we bring back about the African man, that will permit us to know very well that by our African nature, we believe in dialogue and not the use of force. We believe in negotiation and talking. The Korokanfuga Charter is there. It was discovered in Africa. You go to our African history, right from Kemet in Egypt, we have our African ways of solving our problems. Human rights was not taught to us. We introduced human rights. So the Sahel countries, no country on planet Earth should still encourage coup d'etats. And if we don't want these things, let's just put a society in which inequalities are not existing. Let's put a society in which justice prevails over injustice. Let's put a society in which nobody is a bystander. While growing as a kid, when a child was brought to the planet Earth, I was made to understand he ceased being the father's child, but becomes a child of the community. We should be each and everyone's keeper, because
Yes.
I am because you are, and you are because I am. We do this inclusiveness, respect of human rights, respect of non-violence ways to handle conflict, and we are going to make the Sahel zone Pacific.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kinang. Everyone, you will agree with me that the panelists have been on fire today. They have really done justice to the topic, cultivating a culture of peace. So to end this session, I would like to see everyone make it rain in the chat box with a clapping ovation in the chat box. Could you just drop the clapping emoji? Let us appreciate our panelists. And as we do that, I am quickly going to pass the mic to the convener, Mrs. Laure Ngale, to handle the closing session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abigail. Thank you to our panelists. We would have loved to continue till thy kingdom come. Unfortunately, everything that has a beginning also has an end. Nous voulons vous remercier pour votre temps d'avoir pu assister à cette session et nous l'avons voulu aussi interactif. Et je pense que nous avons réussi cela dans nos encouragements envers notre modératrice qui a su gérer non seulement le sujet, mais les différents panélistes, mais aussi les panélistes qui ont partagé de leur expérience. Et nous savons que ça nous a permis d'avoir plus d'informations sur le sujet qui nous intéresse aujourd'hui. À présent, nous allons inviter avec nous ici dans cette session. Nous n'avons pas pu le faire à l'ouverture. Nous allons inviter le co-initiateur de l'initiative defyhatenow, Stephen Kovacs, qui s'est joint à cette session d'aujourd'hui. Et comme nous l'avons dit justement à l'ouverture, cette initiative a été mise sur pied par des étudiants de l'Université panafricaine, mais en collaboration avec l'association Civic Watch, qui porte l'initiative defyhatenow au Cameroun. Steve, nous voulons avoir un mot de votre part, non seulement pour nous parler de cette journée qui est la journée internationale de la paix, mais ce qu'elle représente pour l'initiative defyhatenow.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Laura, tu m'entends? Donne-moi un signe. Ok, alors ça veut dire que tu ne m'entends pas, que vous ne m'entendez pas.
We are getting you, Steve.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I am getting you.
Okay, I asked Laura for a thumbs up if she could hear me because I have a complicated tech setup here. Anyhow, yes, thank you very much, Laura, and everybody who was on the panel. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate in the whole thing. I came in relatively late, but I'm really, really happy that this conversation took place. I think it was sparked by an idea not very long ago, just a few days ago, together with an old Defy Hate Now colleague from South Sudan, Guy Aket, who I believe is here in the call and is studying at the Pan-African University, together with a number of his colleagues from various countries. For me, as a Canadian visiting here, Cameroon, this was extremely interesting to get to know, even if briefly, this broad spectrum of youth from various countries in Africa. And I'm very happy that this discussion could take place in the context of the International Day of Peace. This is actually a little tradition that we have in Defy Hate Now since 2015, which we call Social Media Peace Jam, hopefully connecting to other people on social media in various places around the planet. Started in 2015 in Juba in South Sudan. And yeah, I'm wishing everybody success in their efforts at strengthening peace, strengthening civil society. The four people that we met a few days ago during the Africa Fact Checking Fellowship event here in Yaounde in Cameroon, from the Gambia. Here's if my brain is working, from the Gambia, from Sierra Leone, from South Sudan, as well as from Sudan. Was particularly interesting because every one of these countries has a very specific conflict scenario or is emerging from a conflict scenario into post-conflict transformation. And these all require very concentrated, but what one could say sort of perhaps tailored forms of peace activity. And I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of a conversation to look at what are the ways in which to address these various forms of conflict, and where to address also where are these things coming from, and how can we work online to help counter, let's say, the agents of conflict who are trying to push these wars and conflicts and knock them out of action. So thanks again for doing this, and I pass the floor back to the moderators and the panelists, and I'm wishing everybody a great day.
Merci beaucoup, Steve. Et nous allons à présent, pour le compte de l'Université panafricaine, recevoir le professeur Christophe Anso qui nous dira justement un mot, non seulement par rapport à cette journée, mais également concernant cette collaboration qui se fait entre nos deux institutions. Bonjour, professeur.
Bonjour, Laura. Good afternoon to you all. I'm speaking in the honor of the Pan-African University. First of all, to greet all of you for the brilliant participation that I followed you closely. On behalf of the hierarchy of the Pan-African University, and especially the director of the institute, Dr. Gapsa Lidwina, who could not make it here but asked me to represent her, that we are very, very happy and that this session has taken place. It is really one of the main objectives of the Pan-African University, peace and security. And so we are happy that youth are really picking up, youth within Africa are picking up in this discussion, and to see how we are going to implement it at the early stage of education. Actually, answering one of the questions, the African Union is doing a lot. I will say that as one person put it, it was Ceesay, who said you have complex conflicts. In Africa, conflicts are very, very complicated. Conflicts are not as easy as that. First of all, the African Union has the African architecture for peace and security. This architecture is participating in resolving conflicts within Africa. But don't forget that states have their sovereignty. When there is a conflict, the African Union will allow the states to be able to handle the conflict on their own. And if the states are unable to do that, then the African Union will come in to give their support. So, and the African Union is doing a very great job from this perspective. It is true that everybody wants conflict to be resolved on the very day it starts, which is not possible. So conflict has a life on its own, but the African Union has been participating in the different conflicts all over Africa. And that is why the whole of Africa, the conflicts that used to be in Africa are reducing. There are some complicated conflicts that all of us have to put our hands on deck to see how to resolve this conflict. And wherever you are working, at which angle you are found, it is your responsibility to participate to build peace. Peace is one of humanity's main value. With us in the Pan-African University, we believe strongly that peace is one of humanity's main value. And that is why we are supporting strongly Defy Hate in this campaign. And Defy Hate has been doing a lot for quite a very long time. And so we are very, very glad to work today with Defy Hate in this project. And we hope we are going to continue in this light to see how to install peace and security all over Africa. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, professeur. À ce moment, nous allons prendre le mot de fin du chef de projet pays de defyhatenow, qui est également le fondateur de l'association Civic qui porte cette initiative au Cameroun. Alors, nous invitons M. Ngala Desmond Ngala pour son mot de fin.
Good afternoon, Law. Hello, everyone. And if you can hear me, please just let me know you hear me. Just wave so I can. I'm sure that you hear me. Good. Thank you to Dr. Kinang, to Kamara, Tejani, in fact, to every other panelist who came on board here today. Thank you also to the hierarchy of the Pan-African University for Humanities Governance here in Cameroon. Thank you to the wonderful students of this institution that actually agreed. But also a big thank you to the initiators and those who ideated around this concept of an online call for this day. I would wish to invite all of you to our office here in Yaounde. The next time we're having an event with Beam Live, either from the office or from the campus. We've started online, but hopefully we will get going. In the past years, we've celebrated the International Day for Peace with what we usually called Peace Jam, because it was an idea to call people from different walks of lives to come together and push an idea or ideology of peace. We've gradually changed this, not completely, because we're still actually connecting people and more people even online. But one of the things we want to keep doing is engaging students and young people across Africa, irrespective of their countries where they're based, in peace. And to this, I say a big thank you to you, Law, and colleagues who've actually been working tirelessly to see that this goes through. And thank you, Abigail, for a very wonderful moderation. And to Professor So, who's been actually pushing the buttons at the Pan-African University. We also say a big thank you to you. So back to you, Law, and we'll stay connected online.
Alors, cela dit, mesdames et messieurs, nous sommes venus à la fin de notre session. Nous vous remercions pour votre temps et nous savons que bien que nous avons pu aller au-delà du temps, nous n'avons pas traité de préoccupations, mais nous vous invitons à continuer ces échanges sur les réseaux sociaux pour qu'on ait plus de diversité et d'idées par rapport à la promotion de la paix. Nous voulons remercier particulièrement l'Union panafricaine de nous avoir ouvert ses portes et pour rappeler que toute cette activité a été initiée, coordonnée, organisée jusqu'à ce niveau, pas des étudiants comme vous et moi. Nous dit combien les jeunes s'engagent davantage dans les activités visant à promouvoir la paix. Nous remercions également la modératrice, Madame Abigail, qui a fait un formidable travail, et nos différents panélistes. Nous voulons également saluer particulièrement toute l'équipe de defyhatenow, de Nairobi, du Soudan du Sud et partout ailleurs en Afrique et dans le monde où vous avez pu connecter cette session. Nous voulons également, si vous pouvez bien vous joindre à moi, saluer et encourager nos interprètes qui ont pris la peine de s'assurer que nous n'ayons pas de barrière linguistique tout au long de cette session, ainsi que ceux qui travaillent d'arrache-pied en back-office, comme Guy Akech, Dan Kingori et beaucoup d'autres personnes qui ont pu mettre la main pour que nous réussissions. Et nous remercions également l'équipe de defyhatenow Cameroun qui justement a donné une meilleure visibilité et communication de cette activité. Cela dit, nous vous souhaitons une superbe et agréable journée sur la paix. Continuons à promouvoir la paix partout où on se trouve et on souhaite vous retrouver à très bientôt. Avant de partir, je vous prie, s'il vous plaît, d'allumer vos caméras pour que nous ayons une photo